game. What about this? Can we create life by accident? Very good. You already are able to answer that. Can we create life by accident? The answer really is no. Life was not created by accident. What was? Amino acids. But wait a minute, Joseph. You said that amino acids are the basic building blocks of life. Couldn't that have been used to create life? Not with the experiment. You see, when they conducted that experiment and they zapped that experiment with electricity, do you know what they left out? Oxygen. They took oxygen out of the experiment. Wait a minute. Can we have a world without oxygen? No. If we have no oxygen, what would we breathe? If we had no oxygen, what would protect us from the sun's rays? We have something called an ozone layer that protects us. So you need to have oxygen in the experiment. Why didn't Miller put oxygen in the experiment? Because he knew what would happen. If he put oxygen into that petri dish and zapped it with electricity, you know what happened? An explosion. And so he didn't want to blow up his lab, so he left oxygen out. Right? Can you do that in science? Can you leave something that you need out in order to make your experiment work? No, you can't. But he did. And you know what he created along with his amino acids? A soup that was harmful to life. A soup that was filled with tar and other acids that would have killed any living thing that had been created. So can life be created by accident? No. Did the universe start with a bang? Is the earth really, really old? Can life get started by accident? We only got one thing left. The last bastion of evolution. Those missing links. Those links that say we really did evolve from a monkey. Did people evolve from monkeys? Did they evolve from monkeys? I don't know. Could be. I'm just kidding. Do we have a missing link? Do we really have a missing link? No, that's why they're called missing. Oh. We don't have a missing link. There really were, it's not missing at all, or they really are missing. And guess what, folks? We have never found a missing link that links anything to anything. Wait a minute. What about all those missing links that we talked about? Folks, we've been searching for 300 years for the missing links. That's plenty of time to find them. 300 years we've been looking, and there has never been anything that we could find. Which means the ones that we have found, there are actually explanations for them. You know what the explanations are? They're fakes. All of them are fakes. The ones that are in your textbooks have been proven 20, 30 years ago to be a fake. And they're still in your textbooks in order to try to convince you that evolution is true. Which means, folks, do you know what they're doing? They're lying to you. They are lying to you. And if you go to the textbook companies and say, why do you have lies in the textbook? They will answer you and say, well, what are we supposed to put in there? I have all the truth. That would be nice. And they would say, well, what? You want us to put creation in there? No. You don't have to put creation. Just don't put in lies. Take the lies out. Put in whatever you want as long as it's the truth. But they won't do it. They won't do it unless a number of parents complain and say, we won't buy any more textbooks that have these lies in them. And if we get enough people to do that, then they might actually start printing materials because they want to sell the textbooks. So go write your local textbook companies. What about all those missing links, right? What about Nebraska Man? Nebraska Man seemed pretty competent, right? Here you have that skull and that tooth. It was constructed from a tooth, right? Remember Nebraska Man and his wife? Do you know what that tooth actually was? They actually was able to run a genetic test on the tooth. You know what they discovered? It's the tooth of a pig. That's your Nebraska Man. Little Peter Porker there. It was the tooth of a pig. What about Piltdown Man? Piltdown Man was pretty, well, I don't know, I was pretty shocked by Piltdown Man. Human skull, right? Jawbone of an ape. That really made a lot of sense. They ran genetic tests. It was human, it was ape. So what happened there? It was a human skull. It was an ape jaw filed down to fit the human skull. The scientist that discovered Piltdown Man actually took a metal file and he started carving out the bone so that it would fit into the skull of a human. Folks, it was a fake. The scientist lied so that he could get money. And believe it or not, there is a lot of money in evolution. He lied in order for people to fund his experiments. Piltdown Man is a fake. What about Neanderthal Man? That's their best evidence. Neanderthal Man, remember those big eyebrows, right? That curved back? What about him? Well, here's what they found. They found the skull. They found the protruding eyebrows. They found it linked to a curved spine. And it is human, or human-like. They've been able to test that. But is it a missing link? There are two better explanations than a monkey going up. Number one, the man is suffering from a vitamin deficiency. When you run out of vitamins, and you run out of important vitamins in your diet, you begin to be deformed. So boys and girls, that's why you need to eat your kimchi. It has lots of good vitamins. Believe it or not, I am a firm believer now in kimchi. It's salt, it can cure colds, it can fix a lot, so eat your kimchi. Okay? We need our vitamins. We need a proper diet. Otherwise, we get deformed. But here's an even better explanation for what Neanderthal Man was. Neanderthal Man was an old man suffering from arthritis. How many of you have ever seen old women or old men that don't have the proper calcium in their diet? What begins to happen to their back? It begins to curve over and they develop what we call a hunchback. So this is not an ape coming up, it's a man going down. Do you also know that the jawbone in your head grows your entire life? So this man probably was simply really, really old when he died. And he was suffering from arthritis, and it's not an example of a missing link at all. Just some poor old guy that was called a monkey. What about Cro-Magnon Man? Australopithecus afarensis. What about Lucy? Is Lucy a missing link? Lucy was found 2 weeks before the scientist's money ran out. And in order for him to get more money, he had to find something. So do you think he was really, really looking hard for something? Yes! He wanted his money! And so he was looking hard for anything. What did he actually find? Lucy was only 40% of a skeleton. Okay? And we couldn't even distinguish what Lucy was based upon the bones that were left. We don't have enough of them to be able to know if Lucy was indeed a human or a chimpanzee or an ape. We don't know. It was only 40% of the skeleton. If you look, it mostly looks like a large chimpanzee. Just a really big chimpanzee. Chimpanzees can get pretty big, so it was just one of the bigger ones. Most likely just a large chimpanzee. But what about that skull? Right? The skull up there? We can't even distinguish it. Right? We don't have enough. We don't have enough jawbone. We think that's kind of the piece of the back of the skull. There's the top. That's sort of a jawbone, you know. Something really smashed that skull. So it made it so that we can't really distinguish what it is. That knee joint, that part that was right there, that was vertical, that was their proof. Aha, see, this is the missing link. Was actually found 5.5 miles away from the rest of the skeleton and 200 feet down. Is that knee bone really connected to that chimpanzee? Not unless some poor chimp got his foot stuck in the mud. And then some ticked-off elephant grabbed that chimpanzee, pulled him right out, leaving his leg behind. Proceeded to throw him 5.5 miles away, and was so mad he walked over and stepped on his face. That's the only way I think that could make sense out of that. Lucy is not a missing link at all. It's probably just a chip. So what does that mean? What are the odds? What are the odds of a chimpanzee actually becoming human? Well, we've talked about it. They're 98% human. They're only 2% different from us. Do you know that 2% different is actually quite a bit? Let's take a look at the number. Do you know what the 2% is that is actually different? There are 60 million genetic differences between us and a chimpanzee. 60 million genetic differences. Do you know what the odds are of random chance mutating a chimp into a human? The odds of that happening are 1 over 60 million times 1 over 59,999,999 times 1 over 59,999,998 times 1 over 59,999,997 times 1 over all the way down until you get to 1 over 2. Do you know what that equals? The odds equals 0. That number is so big, mathematically, we don't even have a name for it. The biggest number we have a name for is called an agugaplex. That is 1 with 100 sets of zeros after that number. This number is bigger. It's bigger than an agugaplex. We don't even have a name for it. Wait a minute. If this number is so big and so huge, can we statistically believe that evolution could change a chimp to a human? It is more logical to believe that a tornado could run through a junkyard and compose from this tornado a 747 fueled and ready for takeoff with the runway and the tower perfectly intact. Do you think a tornado could do that with a junkyard? Then I don't think we should believe that science can do that with evolution. Do you know that nothing good has ever come from a mutation? Nothing. Mutations have never improved anything. Mutations have 3 possible possibilities. Ready? Number 1, they're harmful, which means whatever mutated got deformed, like poor Mr. Turtle here. Who says 2 heads are better than 1? Not him. That poor guy is hurt. Mutations damage the creature. Number 2, they're sterile. They can't have kids. Mr. Turtle couldn't have kids. He couldn't reproduce 2-headed turtles. And we wouldn't have a species of 2-headed turtle running around. He was sterile. Number 3, they're dead. Mutations often kill whatever got mutated. So really? What about sickle cell anemia? Sickle cell anemia is where your cells begin to change and look like a banana. That's in your bloodstream. They look like a banana. Do you realize that people with sickle cell anemia never get malaria? It's impossible to give them malaria. Isn't that an improvement? We now have a group of people that will never catch malaria. Great. They just die from the sickle cell anemia. So it doesn't improve anything. It still kills them. Personally, I'd rather take my chances with the malaria. The sickle cell anemia doesn't work. No mutation has ever worked to improve anything, which means evolution is 100% false.